Well, congratulations on being caught up on this project. And now we're ready to move on to that one last final step, which is going to take this project from being great to amazing. So far, we've spent a lot of time talking about the element of space in this project. We've used one-point perspective to make our letters look like they're going back into space. We've used the vanishing point to give them their three-dimensional sides. We have created a lot of depth in this picture. But now we're going to turn the tables a little bit. We have the element of space. We're going to continue to add more of the element of space, but to do that, we're going to have to use another element. And so we're going to start talking a lot about the element of value next. Before we can do this, before I can show you the instructions to finish the project, we need to take a few moments and we need to really remember what value means. The element of value is the lightness or darkness of an object. At least that's what I've always told you about value up until this point. But if you look at the sphere in this picture, if you look very closely, you will see that there is a lot more happening than just areas of lightness and darkness. So I think it's time for me to give you a better definition of value. Value is how an artist uses areas of lightness and darkness in their artwork. They use areas of lightness and darkness in many ways, including to create realistic details. For example, look at this dragon. This is a pencil drawing, and because the artist has used areas of lightness and areas of darkness and blended these shadows and shadings together, we are able to see something realistic and all of its details just because of how the artist applied value. Another way that an artist can use areas of lightness and darkness is to create emphasis, which means to make something stand out. Take a look at this pencil drawing. Look closely. The more you look, the more details you see. And because the artist has used very dark darks and very light lights, things are starting to come to your eye, which you might not notice at first glance. A very effective use of value. And finally, an artist can use areas of lightness and darkness and value shading to create the illusion of depth, which is what we are going to be doing when we continue work on our project. This is showing the element of space. Look at this picture. The artist is drawing on a single sheet of paper with a pencil, but it looks like it is showing great depth. You can see way down inside of this weird kind of hole based only on how the artist has used areas of lightness and all of the shades in between, all the way to darkness. So before I let you loose to start shading the rest of your letters on your name project, I think we need to take a moment to discuss and think about the physical act of shading. So I think by now you probably know that value is the difference between light and dark. But getting it out of the pencil and onto the paper in a way that shows smooth blending is something that probably not all of you have mastered by this point in 6th grade. So I'm going to take a moment and give you a couple of tips, and then I'm going to have you do a little bit of practice. Shading is what happens when you take a pencil or other art tool and rub it against the paper. So that's your very most basic definition of shading. But in order to show value in your shading, what you have to do is change the pressure of your hand. So if I color very, very lightly, then I'm going to get a light value. If I color very, very heavy, I get a dark value. But my goal, our goal in shading is to make a gradation, which means a blending from light value, and just barely pressing a little bit harder, a little bit harder, a little bit harder, till eventually I get to dark value. Some artists will do this quite effectively without ever lifting their pencil. Sometimes you have to go back and forth, back and forth, adjusting your pressure. Pressure is how hard you are pressing on the pencil or tool to get your chosen value, okay? So I want you to practice this a little bit first before you move on to your project. As soon as this video is over, I want you to come to me or find my stack of these papers somewhere around the room. This is a little worksheet where you are going to practice, number one, seeing different shades of values, and number two, creating a blended gradation of shading. I will read this through to you right now so you know what to do when you get yours. Of course, you're going to write your name on the top. It gives you the definition of value and the definition of shading, which you can read those yourself. And then it says right here, practice your value skills. Use a pencil to color 5 different values in the boxes below. Put them in order from lightest to darkest. So you see you've got 5 boxes. Your only job is to use a pencil and show 5 different values, starting with the lightest on this in this box and the darkest in this box. Now I have an example that I will show you, a larger one that's easier to see. So here is my value scale. Mine has 6 instead of 5. But you can see the very first box is the lightest of all values, which is white. The very last box is the darkest of all values, which is black. And then with a pencil, I have just colored inside the boxes a very, very light, and then a little darker, and a little darker, and so on till I get to the end. This is what you are going to do. This is how an artist trains their eye to see different distinct values, because you have to see and recognize values before you can recreate them on a picture. So you will do this little value scale in these 5 boxes on this paper. When you're finished with that, the next box down here at the bottom, it says practice your shading skills. Beginning with the lightest value and going to the darkest value, show 5 values in the box below. Then it says, each value should be blended smoothly into the next. Let me show you. So here is my example, large size so you can see. Starting with white, or my lightest value on the end, it's a continuation, kind of like what I just showed you on my little paper with my pencil. It gets gradually darker. That's why it's called gradation. That's part of the word gradually, which means that it slowly blends from one value to the next, to the next, to the next. It never, anywhere on here, there's never a spot where it's light on one side and suddenly a different value on the other side. They blend smoothly together. And so that's what you're going to practice in this bottom box down here. When you have this worksheet done, I would like you to bring it to me and get it checked. Note, if any of these boxes look alike each other, I will make you go back and fix it. And down here, if there is a space where I can say there's a line where it's light on one side and it's darker on the other side, I will make you go back and fix it. So you're striving for all different values, very distinct and different from each other, and then blending them smoothly and slowly from one to the next, with no area in here where it's definitely one on one side, one on the other side. Good luck.